I'm tremendously honored that Unworthy Republic has received this year's Ridenhour Book Prize. It's especially meaningful to me because the atrocity that Ron Ridenhour brought to the world's attention, the 1968 My Lai massacre in Vietnam, followed in the wake of others committed by the United States in earlier wars, not overseas, but right here in North America, against the continent's indigenous inhabitants. In short, there are connections and continuities in U.S. imperialism across the centuries, and my work focuses on the early part of this long history when Europeans began colonizing the continent and dispossessing native villagers. Unworthy Republic describes the era we commonly call Indian removal in the 1830s, though it's a policy more accurately described not as removal, but as deportation, expulsion, and even extermination. When I started working on this book 8 years ago, I was interested in situating the United States alongside other nations in the 19th and 20th centuries that had counted, evaluated, deported, and tried to exterminate people within their borders, nations such as Bourbon France, Tsarist Russia, and Nazi Germany. As I was researching and writing, the politics in the United States were changing around me. The subject of Unworthy Republic became more tightly relevant. In fact, I came to recognize the present in the past, and that served as a motivating force for me, and I think made the book more urgent. As I dug into the project, storylines emerged that continue to resonate today. For example, the federal government in the 1830s had outsized ambitions, though it employed a total of only 600 people in Washington. The best and brightest of the federal officers, following Andrew Jackson's orders and with Congress's approval, carried out a degrading, dangerous, and irreversible experiment with the lives of other people by shipping 80,000 indigenous Americans, including, of course, children, pregnant women, infants, and the elderly and frail, shipping them hundreds of miles west to uncharted land. This exercise in hubris, rooted in an unshakable faith in white supremacy, foundered when cholera spread through the refugee camps, when winter storms descended on the migrants, and more predictably when contractors failed to deliver their promises, leaving the deportees starving and exposed to the elements. Yet, federal officials took satisfaction in properly folded reports, in accurate accounting to the fraction of a penny, and in the systematized filing of paperwork, all the while shielding their eyes from the full scope and impact of the extraordinary human operation they were directing from afar. There's a second storyline all too familiar to us today. Wall Street made sure that the government operation became a source of profit for itself, and New York's leading financiers invested millions of dollars in the dispossession of native peoples. More than one congressman had a direct financial interest in separating indigenous families from their farms. As a result of this alliance between the federal government and Wall Street, Choctaw, Chickasaw, and Creek households lost vast sums, equivalent to wiping out the net worth of all but the wealthiest families in the United States today. The struggle of Native Americans to hold on to their lands and to retain their sovereign rights is ongoing, as Rebecca Nagel has so compellingly documented in her podcast, This Land. So I want to conclude by recognizing the indigenous Americans whose stories make up Unworthy Republic, by honoring the people who lost their lives and lands, and by acknowledging the survivors and their descendants. Unworthy Republic is about dispossession, white supremacy, and indigenous rights in the 1830s, but the story continues to this day.